You are listening to Fantha Tracks.
Because of the following special program, Wonder Woman and the Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
It's time to get all your Star Wars news in a single file. This is Making Tracks. Here are your hosts, Mark Newbold and Mark Mulcaster.
That's not true. That's impossible.
You're listening to Making Tracks. I'm Mark Newbold, and I'm sitting in a room upstairs in Fordham Bridge. You can tell there's loads of people in the room from the echo. And I'm joined by Paul Naylor, who will very soon be my co-host on Making Note on Start Your Engines. I'm not editing this either. On Start Your Engines. Yeah. And sitting next to him is Martin Keeler from the Zuveum and co-host of Star Wars Spins. Hello, guys.
Hello. How are you, sir?
Very well. Having a cracking weekend. It's been great fun. Came down on Friday, had a lovely curry, and enjoyed yesterday's Star Wars Family Fun Day where we did a few interviews, and today's Farthest From the Vintage show. And we have an audience as well. Woo! There you go. See, prove we have an audience. And a Sarlacc, so we can't pretend there's not more people in the room than
I'm not sure you're allowed to leak that there's a Sarlacc in this episode yet.
Is that a thing?
Come in.
We have another.
There you go.
You'll have to squeeze in at the back, I'm afraid. It's pretty tight.
We'll save you a seat.
So, because we're at Farthest From, it seems remiss for me not to ask, and starting at the end of the queue, have you bought anything yet, Martin? What have you purchased?
I've not purchased anything yet, but I have been given budgetary permission to get one of those amazing collector's cabinets before I leave today.
The big bugger, the one that...
Yeah, the one that has all 96 and the Max Rebo. I'm allowed to buy one of them before I go home tonight.
I'm tempted, but I don't think I've took my Max Rebo out of the box since about 1990, so I'm hoping it's still in there.
It's got the wrong legs.
Yeah.
You might have the proper legs in your one.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They got that all wrong, didn't they? What have you bought so far?
Well, in
Paul Naylor,
co-host
of Start Your Engine.
Yeah, well, in early 1985, when I was about 14, I got into girls. So I stopped collecting Star Wars for a number of years until I realised girls weren't all that and got back into Star Wars. Married and everything, but you know.
Sure.
My Jedi figure line when I was a kid ended with the first 17 and then a few sporadic figures from the next. So today I am now the proud owner of a prune face, who I've never had before.
Right.
And also, again, as a kid, sold some of my collection. Right, including my Palatoy Death Star, my vinyl Cape Jawa, blah, 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 blah.
Gus,
for literally silly money. I think it was about £2 for the Jawa and about £5 for the Death Star. So I've replaced one of my figures that was sold at that point, which was Power Droid. I got a very nice looking Power Droid today. So and then yesterday, when it was more sort of the modern stuff, a couple of Black Series as well.
Okay. So happy with your purchases so far? Yeah. I mean, we've still got the rest of the day to go.
I was going to say, I'm waiting for the clear up this afternoon.
Looking around on the floor for pound coins.
That yak face, it says 159 on that.
I saw that one. I did see that one.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you two.
I'm reaching out to the audience. Apart from the sandwich, of course, has anybody bought anything of great interest so far? We've still got the rest of the afternoon to go, so is there anything you've grabbed so far?
A ridiculous number of gin and tonics last night.
I
a few other things. There's going to be a micro collection purchase, I think, later on.
I did see along the far wall, yeah.
Are they miniatures of gin and tonics?
Big glass.
Anybody else bought anything? Nothing yet? Nothing jumps out? Okay. Yeah. You've just booked a museum visit, haven't you?
Breakfast as well.
Oh, breakfast today? Because yesterday not so much.
Yesterday not so much.
Anything you've seen?
No, not at all. come here to meet people as opposed to buy things.
It's not good for podcasting, but I'm saluting you for that one. And the sandwich, what flavour sandwich?
The sandwich is very nice. It's cheese crunch.
Excellent.
And it was suitably
I
crunch.
could hear the crunch, yeah.
Yeah, it's good. But I've also purchased stuff, and there's a bit of a theme going on.
Yeah.
I purchased some micro collection.
Oh, wow, okay. Is this because, I mean, obviously it was big back in the day, but is this, well, maybe not so big because it never carried on after Empire, but the interest is still there, isn't it?
I used to have a run of it, which I sold, I don't know, 3 years ago or so.
Yeah.
It didn't quite fit with the other stuff I collect, but I love it so much that I've now put the run together again, and there was a really nice opened but unused Death Star escape. So basically the tower, the lift from the Death Star. It's got the swing for Leia and Luke to go across. Little tiny metal figures, nicely painted. And to get an unused one, they're still in the bags, but they chip. I've got a loose set for the kids. I bought it years and years ago. Peanuts, so the kids played with them. They were little, and they get bashed about. The paint falls off. So to have one unused in its box is just lovely, and it's just a slippery slope. You get one set, you need the next.
Totally.
And if you do have them, they all clip together as well. So the different, series, you have the Hoth, the Death Star, Bespin, and the different sets all clip together, so you can make a lovely little scene. But it's a bit like Micro Machines, right? But metal. The figures are metal. And because of the success of Micro Machines, I'm really amazed that back in the day they weren't a bigger thing. I mean, clearly, if you're a parent, you've got 3 types of Star Wars toys to buy your children. You're going to pick one and stick with it. 3 3/4 inch figures won that battle. But you just wonder what could have been if they
That always felt like, I mean, it could have. Imagine what they could have done for Jedi if they'd have carried that on.
I have to say, at the last Farthest From, I think Gus made the best purchase I've ever seen. You bought a crisp packet, I seem to recall.
Oh, I remember that.
The one of one. That was
I'm trying to remember. Did I buy a crisp packet?
You did in an auction. You bought one. The cynicals say someone wrote Star Wars on it and therefore made.
Oh, that's right. Now I remember. Yes.
How much did you pay for a crisp packet that had Star Wars written? Printed on it from 1977. It was a lot, wasn't it?
It was a lot.
But did it bring you much joy?
It did.
That's it.
It's worth every penny.
But there was a genuine bidding war. That was the best thing about it, wasn't it?
These things only happen at Farthest From.
Only
after gin and tonic.
Got to bring in the G&Ts. So, is there anything you've seen, and I may be preempting and spoiling because other people may want to step in before, but is there anything you've seen out there you think, ooh, I might just hop on that later?
Well, I was kind of, as you can imagine, I was hoping that Zuveum gets classed as vintage now, but apparently not.
He should.
I'll keep turning up until Dave moves that time.
Relinquishes.
But no, there's plenty of stuff. I could spend so much. That's the problem. But it's just magical to walk into Fordingbridge Town Hall.
Oh man,
and you just see everything that you would ever want. And more. So I haven't purchased any yet, but I think that cabinet's got my name on. And I might buy some other stuff as well.
Yes, he said subtly. What about you, Paul? Is there anything else?
I mean, I'm sure after I've done my tea and coffee duties in the cafe downstairs later on.
You're a fantastic char.
Thank you very much. It's been, I think that's what you normally call me. No, something like that. I will do one last tour of the room, and no doubt I'll buy another few loose figures.
Right.
To get me complete back up to the end of the first run of Jedi figures, I think I need about 4.
Okay.
For ones that I sold when I was a kid. And this is why I don't really want to take on one of those display cabinets just yet, because I know what will happen. I'll have that empty row and I'll start spending silly money, and
that's why they do it.
But if I can get up to the end of the first set of Jedi, what does that take you up to? Is that 65?
I think it could be, couldn't it?
So the first one is 65.
So I'll be happy with that for now.
Good goals. Good goals.
Easy goals.
Easy, you'd like to say. We've normally got Mark Mulcaster here with us, or with me. He's working, sadly, he works for Sky, and they pulled him back in at the weekend. So he should have been at an event yesterday, and he should have been here today.
It sounds impressive, but it just does colouring in, doesn't it?
Pretty much. Pretty much. That's what he says he does. I don't really know what he does, but that's what he says he does. So I'm making do with you guys today.
Well, thank you very much.
But you're doing very well.
Hello, I'm Ahmed Best, and you're listening to Fanthetracks.
I've got Martin here, so I would really like to speak to you about two things, Martin. Oh. We'll kick off with the big Z, the Zuveum.
The Zuveum.
I mean, this has entered the realms of Star Wars lore in like no time at all. I would say, hand on heart,
it's top end, isn't it?
Top end of collectors' destinations. How did you turn your area into a destination on a par, I can say quite confidently, with Galactic Star Cruiser?
Well, that's why I've got to thank you, because the first one did have a botched marketing campaign, but fortunately you came in and turned that around very nicely for me.
Thank you.
But so for anyone who cares or listens, I do have an unhealthy obsession with Constable Zuveum, which started with me buying up the figure, one of two figures, when Toys R Us went under. Yeah. And he, for some reason, even at £1 a go, people weren't buying this great figure. So I, for reasons that I can't recall, just started buying them up, thinking it was funny.
You're aiming to be like the sequel to Trading Places, aren't you? This is like your orange crop.
Yeah. I can see the future.
Clarence Beaks of the 21st century.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And it's beautiful because it's so cheap.
Yeah.
And he's such a beautiful figure, such a great character.
Yeah.
Well, you've single-handedly elevated his value from £8 to £8.25, I believe it is
absolutely.
now.
I'm absolutely minted now.
Yeah,
absolutely minted.
Wow.
And then it became a thing of, well, how many can I get? And it just kept growing and growing. And now the really genuine lovely thing is I do get people who come up to me at conventions and go, oh, you're the Zuveum guy. I've got a figure. And I get gifted them, and I get people sign them and say it's really nice. And will it go in the Zuveum? Yes.
So go on then, Martin. How many have you got now? 3 3/4. How many have you got?
3 3/4. Last stock take, which there is a video of, which I can send a link to, it was about 406.
Carded.
I'll show you the video straight after.
And the Black Series?
It's about 60. So I'm embarrassing myself with just the 60 of the Black Series figure.
Because there's at least 80 out there, isn't there?
In one particular store in New Jersey, I think there's still about 80, but they're at full price. So this is the thing people don't realise is there's rules when.
I love this. Is the morals of the story.
Yeah,
I like this.
Like you're an idiot if you pay full price for a Zuveum, right? You're not an idiot
unless
if you
you're
buy 400 that cost less than a £5 each. If you pay anything more than a £5 for a Zuveum, then you've got it wrong. Because that's the joy of it.
But the thing about Zuveum is that he was a character that, as we talked about earlier over a very nice cup of tea, thank you again, Paul.
You're welcome.
About how that character that Hasbro saw him, thought he was a cool looking character, let's make that guy, and then he's in, 3 frames of the film?
Yeah.
But which makes him instantly iconic.
Well, he was heavily promoted when Empire magazine first started promoting Force Awakens. There was a double-page spread that started the campaign, and he was front and centre.
Yeah.
Bit of wording down the left-hand side. I can see the picture now. I think there is only one publicist. No, there's probably a couple, isn't there?
There is a couple of.
Oh, we have somebody in the audience.
Well, it almost makes like the Zuveum is now the modern day Boba Fett.
Yeah,
totally.
Because you were really putting them out there, hardly any screen time.
Yeah.
You were just playing the long game, aren't you?
I absolutely am.
Zuveum tax.
The Book of Zuveum coming soon.
And so this kind of builds on it. So I started off with the figure, but then I actually genuinely got interested in Zuveum and started studying as best I could. And the Boba Fett thing is really, really interesting because, like I say, they had the publicity, and Zuveum's got the same colours as Boba Fett, which is very deliberate by Jake Long Davis because he loves Boba Fett's figures, loves his colours. And when the first publicity shots come out, there was genuinely on the forums, is this Boba Fett? Because he's got a mangled face, so it could be scarred from being in the Sarlacc, and he's got Boba Fett's colours and all that. So there was sort of this brief moment before the film came out where it was like, is Boba Fett in The Force Awakens, and is that the character? And they're calling him Gus Lopez.
Yeah.
And then that was disproved instantly, quickly. But
I mean, you mentioned Jake Long Davis obviously designed the character and stuff. Beyond the figures that you've got, beyond that initial interest in the character, you've sort of delved into it and realised, and Gus, you seem quite genuinely surprised, how many things and how many times Zuveum has turned up in trading cards, in comics, in all sorts of stuff.
He's on a number of top trading cards. He's at a Winn-Dixie little POG things. He appears in that.
There was that Celebration A to Z that they did. They could have easily used
a celebration on the A to Z badges.
Yeah.
Z's for Zuveum. So he appears in all that merchandise. There was a T-shirt, Celebration Europe, which had the milk carton and it said missing, and it's constantly Zuveum on there. He constantly, he's in loads of books. He's in loads of books. He's got his own book. In the Journey to the Force Awakens, he's one of the alien beat-ups in there. So he really was everywhere for a character that, as yet, I'm going to say, has been allowed to flourish. But the thing that's really nice about it, and it was actually Steve Evans from Hasbro who said this, because he's openly said on Instagram that they thought he looked cool. Yeah. He was in the publicity, therefore we made the figure, and we was as surprised as anyone else when he had such little airtime. I never say no airtime, because he's definitely in it, you can see it, but had such little airtime. But now he's kind of become this thing. Like, everyone knows who he is. Yeah. I always put the challenge, if you say to someone, tell me who you think Medine is versus Zuveum, in now times, people know Zuveum above Medine.
And as a point of interest, I designed the logo for the Zuveum.
You did, you did design the Zuveum logo.
Yeah.
And,
which is great for podcasting.
Yes.
And this is what it looks like.
The words come out of you, isn't it? But again, I get lovely stuff, and it is genuinely lovely. Like, people send me stuff. So some guy has, not some guy, it's Reynard. I say some guy, it's Reynard. He has 3D printed me coasters for the Zuveum,
brilliant.
Which have the logo in them.
And am I one of the few people that's actually done the physical tour?
Well, the numbers of people who've done the tour are quite... Yeah, but not many people have physically been in the Zuveum. Yeah. So I think there's about 4 people who have actually walked in there because of the pandemic. So there is genuinely a tour. It takes about 45 minutes. Gus has nobly signed up today.
Volunteered to.
Yeah, he said it's not that I don't like the UK. I can't wait to get home so I can do this virtual tour. As soon as I get back.
I think Gus will be questioning whether he has actually got a decent collection after he's seen
as we said earlier, so close. It's so close. But yeah, there's genuinely, it's all good fun, but there's a genuine 45-minute tour. That's the other question. The 2 questions I get is this real? I get so many messages that said, I've seen all these things, because people share it online, it's a bit of an in-joke, and I will get messages, is it really a thing? Can I really do the tour? And the thing I do keep a list of who does it, and I also do book people in. It's a very, very professional outfit. And when I say, yes, it's a tour, we can do this for you, there's this nervousness about, am I going to be a victim of a joke?
Yeah.
So the bit that's really lovely is at the end of the tour, the feedback is pretty much unanimous, which is, okay, I get it now. And actually there's some stuff in there that I really genuinely found quite interesting. Yeah. So there's enough in there, isn't there, to make it worth doing. But as you can imagine, it's 45 minutes of Zuveum.
But the hunt still continues, I believe, unless you've learned things in the interim, for the guy that performed him on set.
Yeah, so there is a thing going on about that at the moment, which is quite interesting, because we've got a name, but we're not sure it's the right name.
Oh, okay.
So Neil Scanlon, who we should have asked yesterday, Neil Scanlon has gone into a book and said it was played by this individual who was basically an extra in Abu Dhabi. Yeah. And that does match up with some stuff we've seen, but nobody knows where this guy is.
Right.
So we think there's a little story there, which is why I'm being a little bit cagey, because there's someone who's genuinely interested in uncovering this, of tracking down the guy who played Zuveum. Because we don't think he has any idea whatsoever.
He's oblivious to this.
This is what
the legend
he was and what's become of
like Zuveum, you can't find him.
Exactly, absolutely.
He's a double glazing salesman now. I believe he does 4 frames.
We think we know.
Oh, dude!
Very good, very good.
There you go.
That's good. So yeah, there is an emerging story that we might go into another level. That's tracking this poor.
We will follow that on Fantasy Tracks, because that sounds like something we need to do.
Yes, Chris. I have a question. So worldwide, when you've spoken to people about the Zuveum, how many other collectors of Zuveum have you found?
So a lot of people have got a sort of very soft spot for him. I wouldn't say there's many people who have a full collection, but I said this earlier, I do get a number of people who sort of joke, and then they say, but by the way, have you got one? Because I never did get it. and it's a gap in my collection. And I always went, I haven't quite got enough yet. When I've reached that level, then I might consider selling myself up.
What is the end game? Or is there one? Because I was speaking to some people downstairs who've got serious collections, and you get to a certain point in your life, and like we all do, and wonder what's it all about, and then we sort of start thinking, well, what's going to happen with all this stuff? And so you've got a very focused but eclectic collection, and a lot of us do. Mine's really run all sorts of crap. But at some point you think, well, what's going to happen to all of this? So Martin Keeler, what's going to happen to your Zuveum?
So there is a genuine end game to this, and it involves me dying.
Is that a prerequisite for this thing working out?
This is the beautiful punchline to this story. Okay. So what I'm about to tell you is 100% true. So the only person who is mentioned in my and my wife's will is the legend that is Dave Tree.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right, and in the will it says the entire Star Wars collection has to be sorted out by Dave Tree, and then he sells it, and the money goes to our kids or anyone who's next in kin. And the punchline is, I know that means he has to shift 400 plus Zuveums.
Because you're going to work for it, baby.
Because it is literally my dying wish, and he'd be letting my children down if he didn't do it. And that is the genuine punchline to all of this. Everything I'm doing this, I know in my death will inconvenience Dave.
That's kind of pervertedly beautiful.
In the event that he goes before you.
Oh, wow.
That's what he's convinced of. When I told him this, he said, I love the fact you think that you're...
So basically, the pressure of that's going to kill him.
So basically, as soon as he finds out that you're ill...
So he knows all of this, and he's like really quite nervous about it. And well, I'm sure we'll talk about it later, but we are starting a campaign to get as many people as possible to put Dave in their wills.
I've thought about it.
So Greg Robertson, Darth Elvis, who's up in Scotland, he's seriously considering doing it for the same reasons, but also saving knowledge. He lives in the middle of nowhere up in Scotland, and that means Dave has to go up there,
in his little
rescue
van.
the stuff in his little van.
That's 10 trips.
It's brilliant.
The alternative plan could be that you use the 3 3/4 inches to make the base of the coffin and the 6 inches for your lid.
But yeah, so that is the end game. The end game is to ultimately inconvenience Dave.
For everything in one location, daily news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, video and social media feeds, bookmark FanthaTracks.com for Star Wars news 24/7, 365.
Actually, this is Farthest From 22. So I thought when he did a live one a couple of years ago, that was called Farthest From 22 live, and then I assumed that the following ones were numbered, but it wasn't. This is Farthest From 22. So we've done this 22 times in person. Gus, you've travelled over 4 times, which is incredible. Well, I'll turn a quick question to you.
Yeah.
How has it? Well, you travel a lot. You're known for travelling a lot.
Yeah.
Compared to all the other places you go to, this is a very focused group of people with a huge audience here as well. Have got a very keen interest in everything that we do.
Yeah.
You must get I'm hoping you get a buzz out of being around guys like us. Just
oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, compared to, I do a lot of Star Wars travel. I've been to conventions in many countries. The Farthest From, what's great is the quality. It's the signal to noise ratio is the best of any show. It's not a big show, as everyone knows, not that many attendees, but the quality of the people and the stuff you can buy and the panels and it's high quality for vintage collectors and not just vintage, but that's what I mean is the appeal to me about it. It's friendships and getting to see people. But I think other shows I go to worldwide, they might not be that much bigger actually, but the content is more diluted and it's going to be very heavy on the latest thing or whatever, and so that's what I think is amazing about Farthest From is just the concentration of quality.
That's a really good point because, like I say, from that very first one, was it 2012? I think the first Farthest From there or thereabouts.
Yes,
the focus has remained strongly. Dave's been very ardent about keeping it to this particular Zuveum aside, of course.
We don't talk about that in Farthest From. That's.
But I mean, he should be.
It'll eventually be vintage anyway. Zuveum will be vintage.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, here's a question. I'll throw it out to everybody in the audience if we've got time. There's a demarcation line you would sort of say for when vintage stops. Do you think that vintage line will ever shift, or will we always consider, like comics, Golden Age, Bronze Age, Silver Age, Modern Age? That is fairly immutable. You can define it. Do you think vintage will always stay what it
is I think the best analogy. I can't remember which way around it is. There's antique and there's vintage.
Right.
And one of them is pre-war. It's always pre-war.
Yeah.
And for me, vintage Star Wars is always going to be up to Return of the Jedi.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you've got a category to acknowledge other old things.
Yes.
So post-war, up to, I can't remember what it is, it's like sort of 25 years from now.
Yeah.
So that moves.
Yeah.
That date always moves. So it ends up a huge category with a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Maybe that gets sub-categorised at some point later.
Yeah.
But for me, End of Jedi, that's the cut-off for vintage. Anything else isn't vintage.
As in that 85, 86...
Yeah. I mean, I think you'll get vintage collectors arguing about when, because Glass Leeds was still producing them into the later 80s.
Yeah.
But I'm a nostalgia collector, So for me, it's about, that particularly UK market. For me, the toys were out for a couple of years after Jedi, and then they disappeared, and I was coincided with me stopping playing with toys. Anyway.
It's really funny that people refer to it as modern, but Power of the Force 2 is closer time-wise. There's less time between the original run and Power of the Force 2 than there is Power of the Force 2 and now. We've discussed this and we said, classic. You could call it classic, but I think people just do stick to what they're called. I think they are Power of the Force 2 Facebook groups, but those people who collect that line just call them Power of the Force because they don't recall the original Power of the Force.
It will be very much a generational thing as well, won't it? I mean, we're at a point in our life where we've hopefully all got jobs and the mortgages are almost paid off, so you've got that bit more money to spend, so you can afford to go back to your collection and think, I want to do that again. And it'll be the same, so you've got your Power of the Force sort of generation that's probably about 10, 15 years behind that. And so in about another 8, 9 years' time, that will probably become quite important to them. They'll go back to their roots, their childhood, and recollect.
But with Farthest From, open question really, if I'm not putting words in the guy's mouth, it's his show, Dave's show, but if Dave ever decided, because we all know Dave's big on the 90s, it's the lost decade for Dave, isn't it? He's always said that. If Dave said, right, we've done this for 10 years, it's the heart of the show, like you say, but we just want to expand it a little bit and include maybe nudge into the 90s, would that be acceptable?
I think it would be perfectly acceptable. You look at downstairs, we're really fortunate now because not only do we have toys downstairs, we've got some artwork. People are doing their own contemporary bits and pieces, and we represent and encourage other small businesses. So why not? I mean, it's great, and some people are finding now, whilst they not only love coming here for the meat, for the crack, for the meeting people, some people are getting priced out of the vintage market, but still want to go home with something. So I'm finding that I'm now becoming a little bit more eclectic in what I'm getting, just because it suits my budget more.
Same.
And also, I suppose there's going to become a point where you've got everything from that line anyway, so you start then thinking, I may as well start looking at these as well then.
Because you want to keep it interesting, don't you?
Yeah. The retro collection is probably a good example of how the wider market has tweaked. There's this nostalgia thing, but you don't necessarily want to spend £300 plus.
But it's evocative to a certain more broader audience. They see that style of figure and think, that reminds me of...
I do want to say a bit of what Gus said, like coming back after the pandemic to a Farthest From is like a real sigh of relief.
It's a treat
to see everyone again. Such a community.
It is. Oh, absolutely. And speaking of community, we have only got a couple of minutes because I don't want to overrun Dave's show. Star Wars spins, please, briefly. Gus is very much an expert on Star Wars spins now after last night. But just tell us a little bit about... Me and Paul have done it. We know what it's about, but just briefly sell us on Star Wars spins, because we're big fans of it.
Okay, so Star Wars spins is Dave and I's podcast where, I can't remember his phrase, it's the nonsensical quiz about the nonsense of Star Wars. It's basically a quiz show where we have a guest each week. We find out a bit about the guest and we have random questions. So there are 4 rounds. We don't know what the questions are going to be. The guest certainly doesn't know what the questions are going to be. But our one sort of remit on it is that Dave and I enjoy it. So we've not done a podcast with a sort of mission statement that we're going to take over the world with our podcasting. It literally is, if it makes Dave and I laugh, then it stays in. Which fortunately at the moment seems to be resonating quite well because we've done no PR on it at all and it's getting quite a lot of downloads and stuff from nowhere. But it's, have a listen. It's swspins.com. You can listen to it. It's on Spotify. It's on all the things in there. We're 4 episodes in. You're episode 5 on Tuesday, but that'll probably be after this goes out. We've got Santa. We've got 2 more after that, and then we're waiting to find out if we're commissioning season 2.
Commissioning season 2.
Let's see if we get renewed. But I think we might.
I think you might.
I think you need to do Gus's again as the recorded version with all the bells and whistles.
Gus did a live version. But,
it felt like a proof of concept after you'd already done them.
So one of the things Gus doesn't know is every guest who comes on gets a song. We do things, so we find out about the guests, we do the 2 truths and 1 lie, but the 2 truths and 1 lie is presented through the medium of song. So these guys have each had a song written about them each. Which is
put it this way, I think everybody has asked for their songs to be used as their ring. They want it as their ringtone.
I want it, Peter Griffin in that episode of Family Guy when he walks around with the music playing. I want that for me.
So everyone gets a song who's been on it. It probably gives you an idea of how this thing pans out. It's got a few little treats in there as well.
There's loads of treats.
But it's brilliant. Very happy with it.
It's brilliant what you've done. It's brilliant. I absolutely, we all love it, don't we?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Brilliant.
I think the biggest compliment I've had was, so my biggest critic will be Emma, my wife, who quite rightly will say if she thinks I'm looking really stupid in front of people, and I was fully expecting her to say, "What on earth have you done?" She subscribes.
Oh, wow.
And she says, "I have no interest in Star Wars. I just find it really amusing to hear your guests really quite struggling with the David you give, trying to get these really abstract answers out of people."
My show, I think, is probably condensed down to about 45 minutes to an hour.
It was about 3 hours.
And it was a 3-hour recording. I started off as enthusiastic as I am now. By the end of it, I sounded like I'd been in some Guantanamo jail somewhere.
Genuinely, the last line you give in the podcast is, "Please let me go." and that's not a joke, that's genuinely the last line.
It was the post-waterboard gargle, wasn't
I've never felt so shattered in all my life.
So if that doesn't make you subscribe, nothing will. We have literally run out of time. I can't believe we've managed to fill half an hour with this throng of people and Star Wars nonsense.
The Queen didn't get asked a question.
Thank you all for being so quiet.
Yeah, that never happens. So this is the end of this live special Making Tracks episode from Farthest From in Fording Bridge. There's way too many Fs. We'll be back.
Here's another.
One for the kids. We'll be back with the next studio episode later in the week. Me and Mark Mulcaster, providing they don't pull him into work, which would be really inconvenient. But we'll speak to you all again soon.
Coming up next on Fantha Tracks Radio, it's another episode of Making Tracks.